at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on November the 17th in the year of our Lord 2025. And as usual, I got a ton of great information for you. Let's just go ahead and click over here, Murtech on Rumble. And this is the video we're watching tonight, episode 1749. Let's jump into that. Okay, close out the live chat. Slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from ACLJ Sekulow, Devory Darkins, Wendy Bell Radio, and X22 Report. But before we get into that, I do need to give a shout out here to Austin D. Just started following me. Also, Mouse82 just started following me. And Shalandra FFK just started following me. Shaladra FFK, okay, sorry. Rocco2273 just started following my channel, so thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS has been busy today. She reposted my episode 1748, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 532A, and extra 532B, and 532C. And Debbie BS also commented on my extra 533A, 533B, and 533C. So thank you, Debbie BS, for your comments. I greatly appreciate that. Okay, let's come up here and see what we got going with ACLJ. Can the right fight the threat from within? Well, let's just find out. Let's see what they have to say about that.
We've been hearing a lot of things that make sense from Bill Maher lately. And this just happened on one of his most recent episodes of his broadcast on HBO. And he had friend of yours, longtime friend, Jared Moskowitz. But let's go ahead and play bite one from Bill Maher just a couple days ago on Real Talk.
It seemed like the entire Republican establishment lined up against this. I'm not sure you could say that about the Democratic establishment. I mean, Ted Cruz, who we've had on this show, and I certainly have had my differences, but I'm glad to talk to everybody on this show. He was very good on this. He said, the danger I want to highlight tonight is anti-Semitism. In the last 6 months, I've seen it on the rise in a way I've never seen it before on the right. Here's the interesting thing I thought he said. He said about a decade ago, anti-Semitism began rising on the left and the Democratic Party did nothing. And the decade that followed, it has consumed the Democratic Party. I'm not so sure he's not right about that. I'm not so sure the Democratic politicians are more afraid to challenge their left, who think Hamas is terrific, than the Republicans are.
But Jordan, that's what we're seeing. And we're actually at a moment when this is an important conversation, because on the right, you're starting to see not just in the shadows anymore, but it to creep up in the mainstream like it did, as Bill Maher references, a decade ago in the left. And we know the playbook of the anti-Semites if they have their way.
There's two reasons why, for most of our audience, to care about this. One, there is obviously the Christian connection to Israel, and the fact that the Israeli government, unlike those in the past, protect Christian holy sites from destruction. We know what would happen if Islamic radicals took control of Jerusalem. Our holy sites, our ability to go on Christian pilgrimage and to walk the same steps as Jesus Christ would no longer exist. It would be destroyed, just like we've seen Al-Qaeda do it. And we've seen those churches destroyed by ISIS throughout Syria and in the Levant. Also, a secondary part, of course, so that's your faith. Secondary part, take your faith out of it. The United States has to have an ally in the most turbulent part of the world that understands Western values, that is an actual democratic society. And that's what Israel is. So you don't have to like all of Israel's politicians. You don't have to like that. That's different than saying, well, Israel means Jews. That means Jews in America too. And Jews cause all the problems in the wars, though I don't exactly know how you make those connections. It's such a small group of people. When you look at the world and you look at how many Muslims there are, how many Christians there are, and then to how many Jews, I think it's like 15 million in the entire world. There's over 1 billion Protestants, over 1 billion Catholics. Over more than that, I think more Muslims, if you separate Catholics and Protestants out are the largest single group. So, I mean, in the billions number. And you're talking about, you're going to blame all of your problems on 15 million people in the entire world, 7 million of which live in a very tiny country so that they can have their own homeland, that you don't have to be worried about the majority government saying one day, whether they're on the right or the left, we don't want you here anymore.
That's right. And let's go ahead and play Congressman Jared Moskowitz's comments. He's from Florida, and this is his response to where Bill Maher had said, I think it's interesting what Ted Cruz has to say, that I'm seeing all of this anti-Semitism in the right, and that the Democrat Party has already been infiltrated with it. Let's go ahead and play bite 4 from Jared Moskowitz.
I agree 100% with Ted Cruz.
Wow.
Okay. The difference is they have hindsight, right? They saw what happened to us, and our party has been consumed by it. Like, people would say, look, you could be anti-Zionist without being anti-Semitic. And I would say, theoretically, you could. They're just not. When you're holding signs on college campuses saying, go back to Poland, that doesn't sound like anything to do with Israel. When you see a Jewish student walking on campus, you don't know that he's a Netanyahu supporter, but they were surrounding him because he had a Jewish star, right? And so this has consumed us, and it is dividing us in elections. It is run through the whole party. We have tried to not talk about it. We've tried to tamp it down, but it is everywhere. It is moving swiftly.
He said, we've tried not to talk about it. We've tried to tamp it down, but it's moving everywhere and it's moving swiftly. I want to point out a problem right now with what's going on in conservative America. Yesterday, when we talked about the left pushing back against Chuck Schumer and saying he should resign,
which most of our audience would have no say in because they're not on the left.
Exactly. We had more than double the viewership. When we're talking about this issue, and we see this all the time on YouTube, Rumble, the viewership is like half.
Right.
We're not going to stop talking about it because we know this is important, and this is a fight that's going on within the conservative sphere right now, and we have to push back. But it's very telling that there are people that either don't want to talk about it, so they won't watch it, or there are people that disagree, so they turn it off. And that's why we can't stop confronting this, because you see other conservative institutions that are imploding, that are struggling right now because of this very debate. And it shouldn't even be a debate going on within conservative ideology.
No, the idea that, free speech is speech and awful can be lawful doesn't mean you have to accept it. Doesn't mean you have to say, just because they have a right to say it, they're right. It doesn't mean they're right or correct. Just because it's not illegal to say something doesn't mean what you're saying is even accurate. It doesn't mean what you're saying is something that should be accepted or widely even, I think, like even going down that path. And of course, then you're steps away from also encouraging violence when people hear these kind of things. I have to tell people this first, not just because I have a personal relationship with Jared that's not just politics. I'm not going to get into great detail about what he shared with me, but please pray for his family for making statements like he did, that Ted Cruz is right, that there's a serious problem on the right, and the left didn't deal with it quick enough. And as Jared said, on the right, we have an opportunity to deal with this and not just be silent and not just be quiet and then not end up with mayors of New York City who are, so radical, who started the groups that are the most radical anti-Jewish groups on campus, and he created one. I mean, the Students for Justice in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea, again, as a Democrat congressman, he is facing very real threats for the one issue that used to unite Republicans and Democrats, was that we have to have a strong ally in the Middle East so that we don't have to fight every battle in the Middle East that can be on the tip of the spear against terrorism. And that's what Israel has always been. It's also been a strategic partner with our military in testing new devices to protect U.S. troops, like the Iron Dome and these systems. They're deployed first in Israel to see if they can be deployed on the battlefield or even in your hometown to protect you and protect your family. And Israel is able to actually deploy them in real time, live fire from enemies. They've had to respond to Iran. And by the way, President Trump, because he's got people around him who are solid people, like Marco Rubio and others, has not this is not, anytime those people have gotten near him, he has pushed them away. That's,
Right.
He's been a strong ally of Israel. So I want to make that clear. Where we're seeing this as an issue is in younger staffers in Washington, D.C., on the Republican side.
Right.
On the Democrat side, it's their elected officials. So that's what Jared was saying. On the Democrat side, it's the people who have actually been elected to office. That's a much bigger problem because that's harder to deal with.
Right.
When you know that you've got young people who are interested in, the country, they want to work in Washington, they want to work in politics, we have to be able to get the message to them that, one, racism is wrong. And I don't care what your faith is or your politics are. And there's different ways, again, to combat it. But the best way to combat it is in your communities. It's not the government having to do everything. It's communities having to do it. And to say, again, we have acknowledge that you have these issues and then try to understand why. Is it really just because some kid is, interesting to listen to online? Because if that's all it takes to turn people into anti-Semites in the United States of America, then you realize how serious the problem is. And it's one we can't ignore, that if we don't talk about, the Republican Party will be a party that you'll be uncomfortable with as well. And you know what? The left, they love this. The left loves that their leaders are now able to espouse, from the river to the sea, which means destroying Israel in Congress. And that on the right, on the farthest right in kind of the United States political system, and I mean elected right. I don't mean far right, like radical groups who don't have any representation in Washington. I mean the Republican Party, that these young staffers are starting to agree with them on that. Well, they think this is wonderful because you can take that issue that used to unite Washington and say, we must have this strong ally, and say, you know what? Let's question Tucker Carlson said, what has Israel ever done for the United States of America? What is Israel? They are literally the testing ground for protecting our military. Their intelligence, again, on Islamic terrorism that they have been fighting since their existence. They don't ask us to come and fight their battles, if you notice, like so many other countries do. And yet we focus all of this time on, again, 15 million people around the world, 7 million in Israel, which, by the way, 20% of the population there are Arab Muslims who love living there and do not want to live in Gaza or the West Bank or even in the UAE.
All right, there you have it, folks. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. This is a video I shared with you. Following the channel, giving it a thumbs up. I hope you do the same for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what Devory Darkins has to say. Democrats dealt Major Epstein blow as Border Patrol descends into Charlotte. Sounds interesting. Man.
Okay, so what you just saw there was people peacefully protesting, which we know what that truly means, okay? Paid agitators at best. Because ICE is doing exactly what 77 million people voted for, and as of the latest poll, 56% of Americans want, which is to deport illegal aliens. So we take a look at ground news to get the bottom line up front, and we use ground news to see the full picture of what's being reported in the media, but also to stay aware of the narratives and the biases so we can critically think for ourselves. And the one thing that you guys can see right up here up front, it says local reporters and viewers captured masked agents arrested a man at a 4750 South Boulevard and detaining people across South Boulevard and Central Avenue. Okay. And again, the reason why I want to read this to you is because that begins to be the narrative, not that illegal aliens are in this area, but that ICE is doing something wrong. Let me show you an example of that. Take a look.
Why are y'all doing that?
What the fuck, guys?
He was ready for them.
Yeah, and what was he doing?
Obviously, he was actually illegal.
He was what?
What?
Illegal.
How do you know?
Exactly.
Excuse me.
How do you know?
Exactly.
He just admitted it. That's what we do interviews, ma'am. We do interviews.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I really have
You might want to disagree.
Go ahead and come. Exactly.
That's not nice.
Thank you. Well, are you doing nice things?
Absolutely. Make
No,
it
you're not.
community safer for you.
He wasn't doing anything. Exactly.
I bet you he was grocery shopping.
Could be. Bring them a grocery shop. They got to eat too.
Yeah, they do. And you know what? Most of the time, they're not actually doing anything wrong.
Okay, so the thing that continues to stick out to me when I see these videos is that people refuse to just comply. And not only do they refuse to comply, but they're willing to obstruct these law enforcement officers from doing their job. And what's also continued to be a recurring trend, and that's why we use ground news to stay aware of exactly what's being reported, is this. Local officials reassured residents that the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department does not participate in federal immigration enforcement and encouraged the community to remain peaceful. So the bottom line is, guys, we're about to have a repeat of Chicago on our hands here shortly. But before we talk more about that, guys, download Ground News today. Check it out for yourself. It's a tool. It's a number one tool, actually, that we use here on the show to do our research and see exactly what both sides are saying. So if you want to use this app,
Charlotte, that were preparing for the possibility that this operation was going to take place. And it seems like it is exactly underway this weekend on Saturday after several community reports of activity in the area, as well as a statement from the Department of Homeland Security confirming that they are, in fact, in the area of Charlotte carrying out immigration enforcement. They said, in part, we are surging DHS law enforcement to Charlotte to ensure Americans are safe and public safety threats are removed. Now, while they claim to be focused on public safety, you heard from the local representative there, as well as members of the community that we've been speaking with all day, that there's an incredible amount of fear and stress spreading across the community because of the enforcement that is happening. And
let's explore that fear. Okay. Is it wrong for people to be scared? And is it wrong that ICE is causing people to be scared? No. Why? Because if you're not following the law, you should be scared, okay? We have an administration who is going to enforce the law now. And I think what's happened is not only just illegal aliens and Democrats, but also just American citizens in general. We have been, privileged, in a sense, spoiled, that the last administration never enforced the law. And so now when somebody is, everybody's scared. The fact of the matter is, if you're a citizen and you have your papers, you will be released. Okay. It's the bottom line to it. And I'm talking about people who had to get their citizenship by doing it the right way. And if you don't have your papers and you don't have your citizenship, you should be scared. In fact, you should just follow what the instructions have been since day one, which is to self-deport.
I grew up undocumented in Charlotte, in the neighborhoods that so many immigrant families call home. And today I stand before you as not only the first Latino, but the first formerly undocumented member of the City Council. Yesterday, the Sheriff's Office confirmed that CBP will be in our city. However, no transparency, no accountability, no explanation, not to my colleagues behind me, not to the public, not to the families who deserve to know what's happening in their own city.
Okay, so who you just heard from there is a Charlotte City Council member who went to the Queen's University of Charlotte on a full ride scholarship because he was undocumented. He takes pride in being undocumented, okay? And it's just fascinating how these people end up getting into positions of power within these local governments. Here's a photo of him in ALC. I think that sums up everything you need to know. Also, he is a recipient of the DACA program, and he is openly gay, Latino, all the labels that one could want, right? And that's what we're dealing with when it comes to what ICE is facing as they descend into Chicago to deport these illegal aliens. So we have some breaking news regarding the Epstein files, which clearly I know you guys are annoyed of hearing about. I don't want to talk about it, but in the fairness of transparency, we have to bring this up because, see, you have somebody by the name of Representative Stacey Plaskett who was in direct communication with Jeffrey Epstein during a 2019 congressional hearing when they were questioning Michael Cohen. Now, isn't it fascinating that an email regarding Trump, where Jeffrey Epstein clearly starts to sound like he hates the man, gets more attention than members of Congress in direct communication with them after they know he's been convicted or being prosecuted of these crimes? It's interesting. Matter of fact, why don't I show you what the clip looks like? This is the Washington Post running this story, showing the representative herself in real time communicating with Jeffrey Epstein. Take a look.
Of the United States. This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way. Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You, as my friend Mr. Meadows pointed out, misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony. You have suggested you are going to review that. Did you review? Are you going to review it in our next break to correct the record, yes or no?
Yes.
Question, you helped out the president's campaign or were involved in the campaign as a representative, as a spokesman, even in your words today. It was your idea for the campaign dating back to 2011. Is that accurate, yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They
and
are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer.
Uh-huh. You got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them.
Yes, ma'am.
As Ms. Rona, what is Ms. Rona's position?
Rona Graff is the Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot that went on.
You saw it. I saw it. We've all seen it. So the question now will be, will mainstream media report on this particular story the same amount of energy, the same amount of attention as everything else that's come out? A part of me says the answer is probably no. But I'm going to read a couple more statements for you. I think it is ridiculous that he is instructing this woman, this member of Congress, on what questions to ask and all this other nonsense. So I guess the better question is, how many other people was he in direct contact with in 2019, where he was donating large amount of money to their campaign, which clearly made them slave to him, especially people on the left? I think these are legitimate questions.
What did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago. Jeffrey Epstein and I had a very bad relationship for many years. But he also saw a strike because I was president. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. Give me a break.
All right, so that's what the president had to say. It's nothing new, okay? He's been saying that repeatedly now. And the bottom line so far to this breaking news update is exactly what Harris Faulkner put up on X here, okay? Read the latest reporting by New York Post. How did Democrat Rep Plaskett escape scrutiny for her text messages from Jeffrey Epstein? Add in this very similar reporting from the Washington Post. Bottom line is this. Democrats were hoping the release of these emails would somehow damage the president. Well, I think the only person who's going to damage the president is himself, clearly. But what's actually happening is these emails are proving the president's point, that it shows Jeffrey Epstein working with Democrats in the first Trump administration to hurt him. Are we paying attention?
Epstein texted Democratic Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett during your House Oversight Committee hearing in early 2019. Her staff confirmed that and went on to say that, as a former prosecutor, she welcomes information that helps her get at the truth and took on the GOP that was trying to bury the truth. Why do you think Epstein would have been so invested? Well, let me ask you mine. Why do you think Epstein? Wait, hold on. Answer mine first. Why do you think Epstein was so invested?
Yeah, he wanted to get at Trump. There's no doubt he had a real animus towards him. Because Donald Trump allegedly stole the property, the one that was ultimately sold for $95 million that Jeffrey Epstein wanted to buy on South Ocean there in Palm Beach, Florida. But the real question I think that is being missed here, and one I would love for Stacey Plaskett to give me a call and explain. Why don't you explain to me why you're texting with Jeffrey Epstein anyway? In fact, Jeffrey Epstein at that time had already been charged as being a pedophile, as running a sex trafficking ring. And you're in the process of texting with him during my live House Oversight Committee hearing.
Yeah, so Michael Cohen's point is well received on my end. I mean, I just don't understand the justification for texting with someone like that who's already been charged. Okay, you know who he is. Now, of course, she's from the Virgin Islands, and of course, he donated to her campaign, and of course, he has business or had business with the Virgin Islands. I think you guys can connect the dots with that. Okay, it's not speculation. That's all proven in public record. So maybe that's the answer to the question. Maybe she was under his authority at some point in time, if that kind of makes sense. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to the rest of this exchange between Michael Cohen and this host on CNN, because he starts making it about how, as a woman, why would you be texting with Jeffrey Epstein? And then you got to see the way Laura Coates responds in the end. Take a look.
I just want to know why she is in communication as a woman, forgetting about even as a member of Congress. We see there's a whole bunch of perverts there too. But as a woman, knowing that this guy was the worst sex trafficker of underage girls, of children, you're texting with the leader of this when he's already been charged and awaiting an indictment. Shame on Stacey Plaskett, by the way. She owes an explanation, and not the BS explanation that her office and her staff gave.
Well, I invite her to explain. I'll also say, as a woman and former prosecutor myself, sometimes the journey to the truth requires you to walk through the depths of hell, and you meet devils along the way. Michael Cohen, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, see, that last part is what irks me about anchors on mainstream media. She didn't need to say all that, okay? The man came onto your show, let him say what he's got to say and move on. You know, it's almost as if they're always trying to influence their audience, okay? Let people make up their own mind, all right? Again, I don't care what justification. Listen, if she was going through the depths of hell to hold people accountable, why wasn't she leading the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein? Right? Why didn't she come forward and get ahead of this story already? Okay, I think we know the answer to all that. All right, so let's go to our next update. This is more culture at this point, okay? We'll get away from the politics for a second. Michelle Obama, former First Lady. She's going viral because of a comment she's continuing to stress about her hair, okay, as a black woman. And I got to react to it because as a black man, I think I have some authority over on this particular topic. I'll play it and then you'll hear me react. Take a look.
Let me explain something to white people. Our hair comes out of our head naturally in a curly pattern. So when we're straightening it to follow your beauty standards, we are trapped by the straightness. That's why so many of us can't swim and we run away from the water. People won't go to the gym because we're trying to keep our hair straight for y'all.
Let's just pause it for a second. Let's use first principles thinking, which allows us to critically think. My question, first off, to the former First Lady would be, where did you get the idea that black women need to straighten their hair because of white people? Who put that idea in your mind? Where did that idea come from? I've never heard of that. Never. Now, as you guys can see in my particular hair style. This is my natural hair. It is naturally curly. Now I could shave it. I could have a buzz cut like I did in the military. But I like the way my hair is now. I don't have a problem with it. I don't really have to do much to it. It's just naturally curly. I like it. It's who I am. And there are men who are white who also have curly hair. Isn't that interesting? So it's not a race thing. This is another example of people in our society making up problems that don't exist so they can find a way to express themselves, so they can sound like they know what they're talking about, and I guess play the victim. Let's continue.
It is exhausting and it's so expensive and it takes up so much time. Braids are for y'all so we can work harder and focus on the work. So why do we need an act, an act of law to tell white folks to get out of our hair? Don't tell me how to wear my hair. Don't wonder about it. Don't touch it. Just don't.
It's really interesting because I've never had the perception that she holds, which is that white people are looking at black people a certain way everywhere we go. I never had that perception. And because I never had that perception, it means I've never gave that any energy. That's the problem with people like her. They give it too much energy and they psych themselves into this mindset that everybody's worrying about you and your hairdo, and like no one cares about you, right? Like, mindset lesson here for everybody, okay? No one cares about you. No.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I'll tell you, Michelle's, she's got some issues. All right, as you can see here, this does come from Devory Darkins. If you want to watch the rest of this, the link to this video is in the description box below. But let's jump back here because I want to get to some information from Wendy Bell. All right, right down here. Let's see what she has to say. This is why I voted for Donald Trump. Okay. Well, let's check it out.
Ho, 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 it's magic,
Well, in a stunning development, President Trump withdraws his support and his endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio Network. Is it really a stunning development? I mean, that's what the Gateway Pundit's headline is telling us today, but I'm going to say not really so much. Marjorie Taylor Greene is making a decision based on whatever she's making a decision on, and she's taking a sharp detour to the left. Now, if that's what she thinks is going to be politically prudent for her, okay. But I think the interesting thing to note is that this whole thing, if we're to believe Trump, and I do, the president shared internal polling with Marjorie Taylor Greene as she was considering challenging Jon Ossoff for the Senate seat in Georgia. And Trump had sent her some polling data that was like, I really don't think that's what you want to do. You're wicked underwater, like 20 points underwater. I think that is going to be a suicidal kamikaze mission for you. And ostensibly, the relationship that was on the rocks for whatever reason then blew up. Trump on Friday evening, I saw it first thing Saturday, announced he's withdrawing his support for GOP Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm withdrawing my support and endorsement of, in quotes, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia, he said on Truth. Over the past few weeks, despite my crediting record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports, transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, rebuilding our military, being respected by every country in the world, as opposed to being the laughing stock that we were just 12 months ago, having trillions of dollars, record-setting, invested in the USA, and having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, 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 Trump said. It seemed to all begin when I sent her a poll stating that she should not run for senator or governor. She was at 12%. She did not have a good chance, unless, of course, she had my endorsement, which she was not about to get. She's told many people she's upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore, but 219 congressmen and women, 53 U.S. senators, 24 cabinet members, almost 200 countries, and an otherwise normal life to lead. I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day, Trump said. Okay, I've had enough of that. How about you guys? Good. Let's move on. Let's move on to I don't care what she says to The View. I don't care what she says, and neither does he. And there's a reason he's got to toot his own horn there. There's a reason he's got some self-praise in that statement. Because he gets 98% crap media coverage. And he's like, Marjorie, wake up. Meantime, ... headline Newsmax, Trump to push BBC lawsuit for billions next week. Look, lest anybody out there believe this is Trump being greedy, Trump is sending a message. Multi-billion-dollar lawsuits for news organizations, and I'll use that lightly, that make up the news by splicing together two separately different comments and bridging them together to create the narrative that Donald Trump created the quote-unquote insurrection on January 6th of 2021, right? You need to blow that crap up. You need to stop it before it takes seed, and it's already rooted and has been watered and fertilized all over the media. Like blowing up a narco-terrorist boat. Do you see the very clear optics? Don't mess with the USA and don't fiddle with me, says the president. So the BBC thought they would apologize. Yeah, sorry about that speech you gave. We kind of could have put it together. We made it seem we have the highest editorial standards. Like we really are. I mean, we resigned. The head of the BBC and the second dope, right? They resign. But the nail in the coffin for the BBC is when the lawyer said, we really don't think there's a lawsuit here. And Trump was like, really? You think that you're going to apologize and say, oopsies, we sort of made a mistake. Sorry, we didn't mean to. We're super duper good people, but we're going to resign. Nothing to see here. He says, suck it. Here's your multi-billion-dollar lawsuit. And he's now hinting that the number isn't 1 billion. It could go as high as 5 billion. Hey, BBC, how are you going to settle your way out of that? What you don't do is you don't lie. You don't.
Now, if you've been following me at any time at all, you know that that's been one of the things that I've been really, really concerned about is how the mainstream media, including the BBC, can just outright frickin' lie. I mean, 98% negative coverage for Donald Trump. Somebody's got to hold him accountable. I know freedom of the press, but I do not believe freedom of the press involves lying and misleading people. There are some people that actually trust the mainstream media. And if they're being lied to, these people, then they're going to trust that lie. They should not be allowed to give misinformation or lying to the people that listen to them. That's how I feel about it. Now, I know it's Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. I know it's a tightrope there. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, when the network decided to give him some time off, they blamed the FCC. The FCC had nothing to do with it. Okay? So with the Charlie Kirk thing, when he had negative things to say about Charlie Kirk when he got assassinated, the FCC, I mean, they've got a fine line that they can walk when it comes to regulating what is said on network television. But I'm glad that there's ability to sue these organizations like Donald Trump has. He should sue them all. You know, and, he's got enough money, but if he wants to sue him for billions of dollars, I'm sure in the long run, that money will be used to help normal people.
selectively edit. You don't make up the news.
Absolutely.
You don't work with prison guards, Jamie Raskin, to read Ghislaine Maxwell's emails to Jeffrey Epstein and then leak them to your loser buddies in the media to somehow tarnish President Trump. Like the one guy who's not implicated in any of this. It's so ridiculous. And the good news is apparently it appears some people in the UK are mighty pleased that the BBC is squirming. Lots of people in Britain are cheering President Trump on, says Liz Truss, former UK Prime Minister, saying they've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage. They've also covered up what's happening in Britain, whether it be mass migration or economic problems. They are always biased towards the left. This is the BBC, whether it be any of these things. And the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. I believe the organization needs to be defunded. It needs to be put out of its misery. Oh my, incoming. That's what it takes for the madness to freaking stop. When we come back on the Wendy Bell Radio program. Speaking of madness, the Epstein smokescreen, all the juicy tidbits Jamie Raskin and Stacey Plaskett really don't want you to know about. I got them next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run past this commercial break. She's going to come back about the 37-minute mark. So let's get up here.
Epstein. No wonder Trump is talk about is just trying flipping.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio program. I love the horns as we come back into programming. So, did you guys see this headline about this Epstein nonsense? So last week, the big story that the Democrats tried to push out there was that, oh my gosh, there is this email going around. And it's from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell and back. And Jeffrey Epstein was saying the dog that didn't bark was Trump. Trump and police, and one of the victims or one of the people was dealing with Trump hours at a time, and Jeffrey's, in his acquaintance and all this stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, that was Virginia Giuffre. They had redacted her name. She has gone on the record before she allegedly took her own life, right? And said Trump was nothing but a gentleman. He was very friendly. He never was involved in any of this stuff. He didn't get down with any of the girls. That was that. And so Democrats leaked this as though this was some smoking gun. They redacted the name to make it look like there's another victim out there that Donald Trump was dealing with. And Jeffrey Epstein was around it and he knew about it and it was time to drop it. Oh my gosh. And then, yeah, about that, it's just garbage smoke screening to keep this Epstein story going, to deflect from the president's actual accomplishments, right? And to keep peppering away at him. And here's the story. Prison staffers. So the prison where Ghislaine Maxwell is being held. Prison staffers have now been fired after allegedly breaking into Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney-client emails and giving them to Jamie freaking scumbag Raskin, who then leaked the stolen material to the media. Shocker, under a fake whistleblower label. I mean, you cannot hate these people more than you do, but maybe we'll try. This might open the door to new vile hatred of these people. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, Leah Safayan, has confirmed that multiple federal prison staffers have been fired for illegally breaking into Maxwell's private attorney-client emails, privileged attorney-client emails that were then leaked straight to Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin, who blasted them to media like political propaganda. Raskin, ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Kind of a nice place for him to be, isn't it? For him to know exactly what oversight is being done, what exactly is known about who and where and what and when. Well, apparently Raskin believes his lofty position as a former law professor grants him the license to trample on the Bill of Rights by leaking Maxwell's privileged correspondence to the media. He's not just undermining the legal process. He's trampling her constitutional rights, including the First Amendment's protection of confidential communications, the Sixth Amendment's guarantee of effective counsel, and the 14th Amendment's promise of due process that applies to every American, inmate or otherwise. Other than that, I'm sure it's perfectly fine. So according to Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, prison employees at the lockup in Bryan, FNP-C Bryan, that's the facility where she's being held, broke into Maxwell's email system. They stole confidential attorney communications, passed them to Raskin, federal official. He then leaked them to the press under the fake label of whistleblower. The release to the media by Congressman Raskin of Ms. Maxwell's privileged client attorney email correspondence with me, says the attorney, is as improper as it is a denial of justice. Congressman Raskin is a ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, an attorney, and a law professor. He must be aware that his conduct undermines the entire legal process. His action should be a matter for professional disciplinary action. Dude should be disbarred. There have been appropriate consequences already for employees at the federal prison Camp Bryan. They've been terminated for improper, unauthorized access to the email system used by the Federal Bureau of Prisons, blah, blah, blah. Maxwell's attorney directly called out Raskin for falsely implying Maxwell was angling for a pardon. That is how Raskin set this up. According to ABC News, Jamie Raskin sent a sharply worded 6-page letter to President Trump Sunday, following new information his committee received from a whistleblower alleging Ghislaine, that's called leaker, that's called prison guard, alleging Ghislaine Maxwell is preparing a commutation application for the Trump administration and receiving preferential treatment while incarcerated. I'm not going to tell you what he said because it's all bogus. The attorney says, in no court, in no place are they talking about that at all. They have legal processes they have to exhaust before you can hop, skip, and a jump over to the $200 pass, go, collect, yes. We haven't even gotten there, the attorney said. So Jamie Raskin's trying to cover his arse. Good luck with that, Congressman, you filthy dirtbag. How about this? Why was the Democrat delegate to the U.S. Virgin Islands none other than toxic Stacey Plaskett? Why was she texting and speaking with Jeffrey Epstein while in a congressional hearing with then Trump attorney Michael Cohen? Wait, what? Did you hear me? Well, let's read this. This is juicy. An oversight committee Democrat. Oh, you mean a colleague of Raskin's? Yes. An oversight committee Democrat was texting Jeffrey Epstein and taking advice from him during a 2019 congressional hearing with former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen. According to the Washington Post and CNN, so it must be true, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett was exchanging text messages with Jeffrey Epstein in the middle of Michael Cohen's 2019 congressional testimony on Trump's big business practices. Wait, you mean like back in Trump's first term, they were trying to do all of this stuff, sort of like Arctic frost, sort of like Russia, sort of like all of that? Yeah. Plaskett is the Democrat delegate who represents the USVI. Recall Michael Cohen was previously sentenced to 36 months in prison for lying to Congress, campaign finance violations, tax evasion charges related to his taxi medallion business. Epstein was apparently monitoring on live television the Michael Cohen congressional proceedings, and he was coaching Stacey Plaskett. And this is what he said, allegedly. Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets, Epstein said in a text to Plaskett, referring to former Trump aide Rona Graff. This is according to the Washington Post. Rona, she texted back, Plaskett texted back, quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? He's opened the door to questions regarding who are the other henchmen at Trump.org, Epstein wrote back to Stacey Plaskett, who then followed Epstein's lead. And when it was her time to interview Michael Cohen, she asked, are there other people that we should be meeting with? And she steered Cohen. You've got to quickly give us as many names as you can so we can get to them. Is Miss Rona? What is Miss Rona? And of course, there's corresponding video. And there's video of her waiting to speak, texting to Jeffrey Epstein. It's ridiculous. During the hearing, Congresswoman Plaskett received texts from staff, constituents, and the public at large offering advice. This is Plaskett's spokesperson trying to drum up a smokescreen for her client, right, or for her boss, right? The released text messages redact the name of the person Epstein was texting with. This is the thing with Ghislaine Maxwell. They take out Virginia Giuffre's name. Anything to create the illusion, since there is no meat and potatoes on the table, we're going to create the story, right? We're going to create this idea that President Trump somehow is dirty and was involved with underage girls while he was married to a freaking supermodel. That's as realistic as him wanting E. Jean Carroll in the freaking dressing room at Bergdorf, whatever the hell it's called, Bergdorf Dorfman's or whatever. I've never been there. This is where we are, ladies and gentlemen. So this is very interesting. Michael Cohen is being interrogated, investigated by Congress as Stacey Plaskett's texting Jeffrey Epstein as he's watching live. So President Trump has had enough with all of this. All of these people should be investigated. All of these dirty players. And Trump is saying something very specific. Release everything. Just freaking release everything. Republicans in Congress, stop dilly-dallying, drop it. Everything we've got, let the American people see. We have work to do. All we're doing is running through oatmeal. And you don't get anywhere fast. So this is what the president put out. He says, and this is his truth as of, I think this was yesterday. As I said on Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. And it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein and are looking at various Democrat operatives, Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, etc., and their relationship to Epstein. And the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care, all caps. All I do care about is that Republicans get back on point, all caps, which is the economy, affordability, where we are winning big, our victory on reducing inflation from the highest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, a record, the rebuilding of our military, securing our border, deporting criminal illegal aliens, ending men and women's sports. Do you understand? He's got to take these opportunities every single time he gets, because he doesn't get him in the media because they've never treated him fairly. Every opportunity he has to drill home to you and to me and everybody else paying attention. Drop it. Get down with finishing what Epstein's all about. Release the Kraken. And get focused on what we were freaking hired to do. And that's save this country from ruination that Barack Obama started, Hillary Clinton wanted to solidify, and Joe Biden, though he was in his hyperbaric chamber, weekend at Joe's for 4 years, they tried to seal the deal. Trump is saying, stop. Let's get back to work. I agree, Mr. President. And you know what? I voted for this. Fake.
Okay, there you have it. That's what she voted for, and I did too. All right, let me click on this Rumble link and show you this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio.
To do.
I'm following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up, and I will include this in my daily news wrap-up at 9:30. So you'll get to watch the rest of this if you tuned into that. Okay, let's jump back here and move on. We're going to run over this evening, folks. I got 5 minutes left, and this is like a 20-minute video here from X22 report. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Boom, boom. Here we go.
Description. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum. You can see that now as Trump is continually building the economic system, building this new tariff system, which is competing with the central bank system. Remember, the central bank system is a failure. It's a dud. And eventually what happens is the entire central bank system completely implodes on itself, and they have to actually have some type of war or distraction, and they need to start it again. And you can see at this point in time, without the tariff system right now, the economy would be in a deep recession, probably a depression at this point in time. And I do believe this is why Biden came out when Trump won the election saying, I'm handing off a incredible economy. Here you go, Trump, because they never expected Trump, his team, to work so quickly to build the tariff system and have the tariff system basically support the failing central bank system. Because remember, the central bank from the very, very beginning, what they wanted was the entire economic system to collapse. That was their entire plan from the very, very beginning. It doesn't matter if Trump was in office, not in office. That was their plan. Trump countered their plan, and now it's completely and utterly falling apart right in front of their eyes. And now they're trying to think of other ways of how they can actually blame it all on Trump, just like they did back in 2020, and how they can bring the economic system down. But I think every time they try, they're going to fail. And I think Trump's tariff system, once he gets the ruling from the Supreme Court, at that point, I really think it's game over for all of them. Because once they have that ruling, they can never say, oh, the president doesn't have the power to use the tariffs. And we can see that if they don't have that power to take it away from the president then can move forward with the plan. Now, even if the Supreme Court says, okay, we're going to push this down to a lower court, or they don't want to really rule on it today, or whatever they're going to do, or how long they're going to take, Trump has other methods of actually using tariffs, because there are other cases that other presidents have used. So no matter which way we look at it, I don't believe the deep state, the central bankers, are going to win in this instance. But you can see when you start to look at the economic system across the country, you can see that there are many, many blue states. They are now starting to collapse, and many different areas where they were getting federal funding like there was no tomorrow. Now they actually have to budget, and you can see they can't do that, because you have to remember, a lot of these systems that they've been running are money laundering systems, and they need a constant inflow of currency. And when that constant inflow of currency actually ceases, what happens? They run into major, major problems. And then they have to turn to the people of those areas and say, we need more money from you. It's almost like Ma'am Danny in New York saying, listen, you want free stuff? Send me some money. And we could see this pretty much out in the blue states right now and the blue cities. You could see they're starting to collapse. And I think in the very, very beginning, going all the way back, we knew there was going to be a separation between the blue states and the red states. You're going to see the red states where they're not following the Green New scam. They're not laundering money, maybe not as much as the D's, but there's still a lot of corruption in the red states. You were going to see a very, very big difference. And I do believe that's exactly what you're seeing right now. And the people out in Chicago, they're getting angrier and angrier. I think what you're going to have as time goes on, and they're not getting the federal funds. They don't have USAID. They don't have the NGOs to pass along all these funds. They're going to be in a lot of trouble. And of course, the cost goes to the people, and the people have to start to pay, either in higher state taxes or city taxes, or higher sales taxes, or higher property taxes. And this is what the people in Chicago are seeing right now. The Wall Street Apes put this out and said, tonight, Chicago residents are having a property tax bonfire after they received their new property tax bills that have increased significantly. Some residents reporting their bills have increased $977 from last year. Democrats, again, increased property taxes due to budget shortfalls. Residents complain of rising assessments. They say despite property tax increases, there's no notable improvements being made on their city. And I think we, the people, have been seeing this for a very long time. We pay more and more and more. And what do we see? We don't see improvements in infrastructure. We don't see improvements in service. We don't see improvements anywhere. And this is what happens when you run a central bank system, which is a criminal syndicate system. And not just the central bank system, but when you have money laundering and people can't really balance a budget and funds are going out to other things, what happens? The entire economic system starts to implode. And I do believe this is what people are starting to see now, and they're starting to realize, what are we getting for all of this? Absolutely nothing. Yes, this has been going on for quite a while, but now we're at the point where, wait a minute, this is going up quite a bit. There's something wrong here. Because usually when you pay more, you get additional services, you get better service, but when you're just paying more to fund their money laundering operation, well, there's a major, major problem. And you can see all those states where they continually increase the tax on fuel and place regulations. They were trying to go with the Green New scam. You could see all the blue states, they have higher gas prices. Secretary Doug Burgum put this out and said, gas prices are highest in blue states, pushing radical green energy policies, while red states, with an all-of-the-above approach, are keeping costs low. Gas should be affordable for every American, and that starts with energy addition, not transition. And showed some of the fuel prices. When you look at the blue states like Illinois, New York, you're at $3.26. In New York, $3.14. Of course, California, $4.67. Oregon, $3.79. And when you look at Texas, $2.65. Oklahoma, $2.53. Louisiana, $2.66. Missouri, $2.62. Arkansas, $2.64. South Dakota, $2.83. North Dakota, $2.83. You could see the difference. And this is going to continually separate as time goes on. And I do believe what's going to happen is the economic structure of these blue states, of these blue cities, they're going to go the opposite way of the red states. And people are going to start to see a very, very big difference. And you have to remember, bringing in the illegals to this country did not help this country. When you really step back and you really take a look at this country, you could see from the very, very beginning, once we came off the gold standard, and yes, we can go all the way back to 1913 when they introduced the central bank, and then when we became the reserve currency right after World War II. But if we just start from 1971, when we came off the gold standard, this is when the value of the currency declined rapidly. This is when people started to realize, hey, look at this. Something's going on here. My wages are going up. My fixed mortgage is the same. I feel a little bit better. Because this is what happens in the beginning of a central bank system. But as time goes on, the central bank system breaks down. And as it breaks down, what do you have to do? You have to move companies, manufacturers out of this country. Why? You need much, much cheaper labor. What do you have to do within this country, with those industries that you can't ship overseas? You have to bring in cheaper labor. And when you have cheaper labor and you're supporting the cheaper labor via the government or via the local governments like in the state and the city, you provide housing, you provide health benefits. This increases the price of housing and health insurance costs and everything else. And this has been going on for quite a while. Rapid Response 47 put this out and explains, and this is coming from VP JD Vance, and it says a lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we've flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who are taking houses that ought, by right, go to American citizens. What we're doing is trying to make it easier to build houses. We're also getting all of those illegal aliens out of the country. Then he followed up with this. The Biden admin let tens of millions of illegals into this country, dramatically inflating housing costs. They left a series of disasters in their wake, but high prices were foremost among them. President Trump and I working overtime to clean up the mess they left behind. And yes, as you deport these people, as they come off of the health insurance, as those houses become free, they're freed up, and apartment buildings and other things, all of a sudden there's empty space where Americans can actually go ahead and live. You're going to see the prices come way, way down. And you could see that they were bringing all these illegals in to support their main agenda. And I think the people now of this country, and not just this country, but Europe, they're really starting to see, wow, it really takes a toll on the economy and pushes prices way, way up. It's almost like Obamacare. When they said it's the Affordable Care Act, it's not affordable. It's unaffordable. And that's actually what Trump says. And we've known this for a very long time because, again, they were in line with the insurance companies and they just basically drove the prices higher and higher and higher. That's what the central bank does. Their system does not work for the people. The system actually hurts the everyday person, because what happens is, as the value of the currency declines, the items that you purchase, they haven't changed. Actually, production, manufacturing, delivery, all has gotten cheaper. What's changed is the value of the currency. Now, as we wrap up 2025, it's a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing we've all learned, is that uncertainty isn't the bites you announce at com, and as it loses future to chance, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. And as it loses value, you need more of those little pieces of paper to pay for those same items. Yes, I know people use digital blips, but let's just use the pieces of paper. And what happens is you need more and more and more because, again, it's losing value. So when it loses value, people go, holy crap, prices are going up. No, prices aren't really going up. It takes a lot more of those pieces of paper to buy the same item. Actually, the cost of production and the cost of delivery has gone way, way down, especially with robotics. So basically, this is why we're seeing the high prices. Now, Trump, he's going to mitigate this as best he possibly can. Remember, to get rid of the inflation, yes, he can lower energy quite a bit. Yes, he can reduce what it costs to produce items or ship them into this country. He could do all of these things, but the accumulation of the devaluing of the currency really doesn't go away until you actually pay back the debt. And this is why when you hear like, oh, the dollar lost 97, 98% of its value, that's what that means. The value's gone. That's why we can't pay for a penny anymore, because the money's worth nothing. And it just gets worse and worse as time goes on. But you can see Trump right now, he is now dropping the tariffs on dozens of food items, including beef, tomato, coffee, bananas, coconut, nuts, avocado, pineapples. And are we going to see costs come down a little bit from that? Absolutely. By a lot? I don't think so. As of right now, what we're seeing, I think Trump is trying to bring in items from countries like El Salvador, from Argentina, and many of these other countries, weaning us off of other countries and trying to revitalize the food industry in this country, because that's really what needs to be done. Remember, over a very, very long period of time, the deep state players, they've been gutting this country. We don't have enough talent to work in the technological field, in the manufacturing, production. And this is why Trump is bringing in talent from other countries. Just like when this country was founded, we brought in talent from other countries, woodworkers, carpenters, those people that work with metal, those people that knew how to farm. We brought these people in to build America. Yes, we didn't have enough people in here, but we didn't bring in people with no talent. That's what Trump is doing. He understands that we have a big population now, but he also understands that we don't have the talent to do what needs to be done to build this country up. Because, again, the deep state players, they've been gutting this country for a very long time. We'll be discussing a little bit more about this a little bit later. But Trump, he put this out in regards to inflation. He says cost and inflation were far higher under the sleepy Joe Biden administration than they are now. In fact, costs under the Trump administration are tumbling down, helped greatly by gasoline and energy. And affordability is a lie when used by the Dems. It is a complete con job. Thanksgiving costs are 25% lower this year than last.
Okay, I'm going to pause this here because what he's saying is absolutely true. I do the grocery shopping here in this household, okay? Milk, I'm getting for $1.12 or $2.12 a gallon. Last year, it was $2.79, okay? That is like a 30% increase, okay? And if you've watched my videos last week, I believe I told the story of getting turkey at 49 cents a pound. That's unbelievable. Eggs are like $1.30 a dozen. They were $3 a dozen, almost $4 a dozen when Biden was in office. 10-pound bag of potatoes. Used to pay like $6.89 for them. I got them yesterday, a 10-pound bag of potatoes for $3 1/4. Okay? That's half the freaking price. But yet the Democrats and the mainstream media are all telling you, oh, the prices are skyrocketing. Donald Trump isn't doing anything for the prices. They're lying to us, folks, and that's why you need to tune in here, because you're going to get the truth, okay? That's all there is to it. You're going to get the truth here. All right, I want to share some information here. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I want to share some information here from the Wellness Clinic about ivermectin. It's pretty interesting stuff.
Did you know that 75% of the Nobel Prize-winning ivermectin that helped save millions during the pandemic is primarily made in Asia? But not the wellness companies.
Introducing American-made ivermectin, safe, trusted, and produced right here in the USA. For more than 30 years, ivermectin has shown a proven ability to eliminate parasites, and new research also points to potential benefits for skin, immune, and cancer support.
Most pharmacies charge $5 a tablet, but the Wellness Company is offering a higher 18 milligram dose for just $3.33 each. You'll get a 6-month supply designed for 4 21-day cycles, all at an unbeatable price.
Get your US-made ivermectin today by scanning the QR code or head to twc.health/rumble and use code RUMBLE to save $30 off plus free shipping. USA residents only.
Okay, let's jump back here, and I did copy the comments into, or the live chats into a comment, so they'll be permanent with this video. Let me go ahead. That's how you make a comment, folks. You just put information in that little comment box, and then after you're done, you click the green comment button, and boom, there it is. Kind of like turns green and then fades away. It's pretty interesting. I like making comments because of that. Okay, getting back here. This information that I shared with you comes directly from the producer's channel. I have a link to the videos that I shared with you, as well as a link to the channel itself. Right here's a link to X22 report, his episode 3775A. Blue states are collapsing. Yes, they are. Trump's tariff system is powering the failed central bank economy. There's the link to this video. And here's a link to X22 report. If you want to go to his channel, you just click on that link and boom, takes you right there to X22 report's channel. I'm going to be sharing his latest 2 videos tonight in my daily news wrap up. So come to that. You will miss, if you don't, you're going to miss a lot of great information. Okay. Jumping over here, these videos that I shared with you tonight are videos that I've posted on Mertech.com. where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Here's the one from Wendy Bell. Here's the one from X22 Report. Devory Darkins is right up here that I shared with you. American Center for Law and Justice. There's the video I shared with you. I have over 55 great videos, a variety of information, a nice variety of producers. This is your one-stop shop for no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. Now, I'd like to share all this with you, but I just don't have the time. That's why I do my daily news wrap-up, which has information in it that'll take you throughout the night. That'll be about 9:30. Give me a chance to go ahead and update my playlist and set up my video in Rumble Studio. So go ahead and take a break, grab a donut and a cup of coffee, or a soft drink and a sandwich or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30 and we'll get that going. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for spending your time here with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.